On this week's edition of Prep Rally, we'll be touching on 6A West Conference basketball, as well as take a look at the smaller schools that are in conference play and will head for regional play next week.
It's the Prep Rally Podcast, the only podcast in the state dedicated to prep sports. Brought to you by the Northwest Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Here's your host, Chip Souza.
And welcome to Prep Rally this week. I am Henry Apple, joined here by Rick Fires, and in Fort Smith we have Leland Barclay. If you're wondering, where is Chip Souza? I guess we need a little music or something like that. He's off sailing away. He's going on vacation.
Love that song.
Yeah. Something like that. Maybe a Italian opera, since he's supposed to be in the Mediterranean, something like that. But I thought about a song, but I also remember what my dad said when I tried to sing with the radio, and he'd say, "Son, you know why they sing those songs?" And I said, "Why?" He said, "So you don't have to."
Yeah, Chip, man, we got the competent fill-ins right here between the three of us. Chip does a great job. He's taking some time off. I think he's celebrating his anniversary. Instead of going to Paris, Arkansas, he may be in Europe somewhere. He may be in the Eiffel Tower or the Roman Colosseum or something, but we're going to carry on without him. And my goodness, I have to invoke this right here because I'm looking at both of y'all right there. You both got baseball shirts on. I got 4 words for you today. Maybe it's 4. Pitchers and catchers report. What do you think about that, guys?
I think that's one of my favorite phrases of all time, pitchers and catchers report, along with unseasonably warm weather.
And we got both of that today, don't we?
Yeah, we need to find a way to bank some of this, because when high school baseball season will start, I can promise you we'll have a game where it's threatening with sleet or something like that. It always will be cold, and you get in there and you're just miserable. And I'm like, forget the nacho chips. Just give me the cheese and a few peppers.
You know what? We've all been doing this a long time, and we cover a lot of games during the autumn when the cold weather in football in late December and everything. I've never been so cold in my life trying to cover a spring tournament at Siloam Springs one year, about the middle of March, where it was like, there was snow flurries, and they were still playing. Absolutely miserable. So we're going to get hit again. But today, Mother Nature has blessed us, and we're just, hey, I'm just walking on sunshine. I'm just ready to get after it. Let's go.
Yeah. But first things first, we still got basketball. And Leland,
Yes.
It's hard to believe right now. It's how many playing dates do we have left for 6A and 5A schools? It's like the old Tootsie Roll Pop commercial. A 1, a 2. A 3.
Yep.
A 3.
And
yeah, it's winding down, a week and a half. It's funny the way the schedules work out. The small schools are in district playing for their state tournament regional berth and state tournament lives, and 6A and 5A is doing the same thing as the season winds down. And into 6A West, especially, those extra 2 games, it seems like it made the season a lot longer.
It does. And now, talking about 6A West boys basketball first, we now know, as a result of last night's games, the 6 teams headed for the state tournament. We know who they are, but where will they be at when the state tournament rolls? Your guess is as good as mine.
let me go ahead, Leland.
Well, in the top 2 spots, those 2 are so important because it just gives you that extra couple of days. And that's the big deal, because also the way the tournament's set up, 4s versus 5s, 3s and 6s, that's a big deal for those teams too, because of the teams in the Central.
Yeah, we go all the way down Fayetteville. I had the pleasure of covering the Fayetteville game last night in Fayetteville. For the longest time, they were just kind of just moping around, just getting up. Man, hey, don't ever give up on Fayetteville. They are hot, hot, hot. They've won 4 in a row, 7 of their last 8. And, man, you just shouldn't overlook Fayetteville during postseason play. They're really coming together.
You called that one 2 weeks ago, didn't you?
I did. I called it 2 weeks ago, and I saw it with these own Irish eyes last night. I saw it. So should we go to some of these games? I'll start off then with Bentonville West and Fayetteville.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. this is what Fayetteville does so well. I think I counted, and I can't add, maybe 5 guys hit at least between 12 and 9 points. Everybody got in on this. And they've got a little sophomore, Xavier Brown. My goodness, that kid was penetrating, dishing off, and then he hits a key three-pointer. He takes a deep breath with 25 seconds to go, knocks down 2 key free throws. He's really coming on. They got everybody participating. Max Vollmer comes off the bench in the third quarter, sweeping the lane with the left-handed shot, right-handed shot. Ornette Gaines, everybody knows about Ornette Gaines, but I don't even think he didn't even score till halftime. But he came through in the third quarter. Fayetteville is really looking sharp. They play at Springdale on Friday. That's another huge game. Well, I saw Springdale also won. And the thing is, Bentonville West, man, I love me some Greg White. They've done, I don't know, maybe he'd be coach of the year in this conference. I don't know how all that works yet. He's done a tremendous job. But, man, Tucker Anderson at 20, and maybe, I don't know if they had anybody else in double figures, but that team ball right there, that balanced attack, really helped Fayetteville. And they're coming on. They may start up, I don't know, maybe they're in 5th place. They got a chance, 4th place. They got a chance to get up maybe 2nd or 3rd. I don't know. So it's really, even though we're playing for seeding, it's really interesting to see how all these guys stack up.
Yeah, it's a case where, had Bentonville West won this game, boy, they would have had, they started last night with a 2-game lead. Mm-hmm. The 2-game well, now that 2-game cushion has now dropped to 1, and that is going to set up, provided they take care of business beforehand, next week it will be West and Harbor, possibly for the number 1 seed in the state tournament.
And championship. I mean, you always never discount conference championship. You get a plaque or a trophy for that.
And then you look at that, and you've already mentioned it. Now, the way things are, Springdale 9-4, Bentonville, Bentonville a week and a half ago was battling for the top spot. They have now dropped 3 in a row, and now they are tied for 4th, technically, with Fayetteville, and could fall even farther with another loss. Mm-hmm. So this is getting interesting, wouldn't you say so, Leland?
Well, it's the teams at the top, they still know what they have to do, especially these tough games on the road. The teams are having to, they've got to win the games at home. They've got the tough ones on the road, and the girls, side is just as close. Northside currently a 1-game lead, and they held serve at home on Tuesday night against Rogers Heritage. And you guys were talking about sharing the ball. According to Harold McIlvain's story, if I can remember the numbers exactly, they had 18 assists on 25 of their baskets, or assists on 18 of their 25 baskets, which is a tremendous high percentage. So that goes back to what you guys were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and talk about Northside. They've got that 1-game lead. Now, I think, if my memory serves me correctly, they will be idle Friday night. But that's going to set up, because Bentonville hung on and beat Springdale on a shot. Ella Campbell hit a layup with 21 seconds left to give Bentonville a 48-46 win over Springdale. So now that's going to set up a possible meeting next Tuesday at Northside. And again, it could be for the number 1 seed in the conference championship. Although you've got Harbor also laying around there so, hey, wait a minute, we still have a say-so in this possibly.
Hey, now, Henry, I covered the North when Northside come to Harbor, and Harbor just flat out beat them. And then who beat Harbor like 2 days later? Who was that? 2-3 days later, Harbor kind of surprised me. Harbor got beat by somebody down in the standings. So that girls' conference is really good. Going back to your game story about Campbell, I love the pull quote you got here in the newspaper online. This is Bentonville's Ella Campbell after hitting the game winner. Said, quote, "We really didn't have a set play there. I would have been happy if any of my teammates had taken that last shot." I absolutely love that quote. That's what a ball player and a teammate's all about.
Yeah, you have cases where...
That's also high school Yeah, that's also high school athletics too.
Absolutely, yeah. Hey, when I come in from game and I'll turn on an NBA game on the West Coast, clear out, let one guy take the shot, and everybody else try to go to rebound or go back the other way. That's a good point, Leland.
So yeah, it's a case where now we've already discussed on this. The state tournament. Number one, I've talked to some coaches about this, and what they do not like about the state tournament is if you fall into that number 2 seed.
Yeah.
And here's why they don't like it. You don't play in the state tournament. You get a first round bye, but you don't play until Friday.
Oh, wow.
So technically you could have 7 days off. In the case of Bentonville,
Yes.
they have an open date on next Friday. They could be going, if they finish number 2, they could go 10 days without a game.
Oh, wow.
And just sitting there and while everybody else is playing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, and you get on the road, everybody's playing well, and, while you're just sitting there, I don't care how long you practice is not like a game day. So, yeah, I could see where that could be an issue.
yeah. And now
I think the high school coaches, they love a routine and they love to keep their players in a routine.
Hey, that's another good point. Even with football, I remember one time they tried to move it back to 7:30. Or the coaches said, well, we're out of our routine. We do this at this time and that time and that time. And I can't remember if they were arguing about putting it back to 7:30 or moving it back up to 7. But I remember the coaches really didn't like it because it got them out of their Friday game day routine.
Yeah. Now let's switch gears a little bit. Leland, you were covering 5A West basketball game. We thought it was going to be we saw the first game between Greenwood's girls and Siloam Springs. Came down to last shot. Well, the sequel did not have the same suspense as the first game.
No, Greenwood erased the drama pretty early in that one on Tuesday night. And you're right. The first time, Siloam Springs led by 7 points, 58-51 with less than 3 minutes to go. Greenwood had to score the last 9 points of the game to win, including the game winner at the buzzer by Anna Trusty on an offensive rebound. Last night, or Tuesday night, Greenwood scored the first 8 points of the game. Maddie Cartwright hit 2 threes. Anna Trusty drove the baseline and scored, and it's 8-0. It's 20-6, 7 minutes into the game. It's 22-10 at the end of the first quarter. It's 33-16 at the half. And then in the third quarter, Greenwood outscored Siloam Springs 28-2.
Oh.
And they win 70-18.
Wow.
Greenwood forced 32 turnovers and only had one themselves in the first half. I mean, it was just a dominating performance, and one that, like you said, it was after that first game, we didn't see that coming.
No, not at all. I don't know what they did to tick Greenwood's girls off, but case in point, you better not do it again.
Well, and I
turnovers.
talked to both coaches, and Coach, Bo Tillery, he said that the Greenwood Lady Bulldogs are a team that's on a mission, and that that his team was kind of scared in the moment, especially early when they forced those turnovers. Greenwood forced 6 turnovers in the first quarter, 7 in the second quarter, and in the third quarter, Greenwood forced turnovers on Siloam Springs' first 6 possessions, and then it got out of hand pretty quick.
So that kind of sets Greenwood into, a good position. They now have that 2-game lead with 3 games left to play. But you look at the standings, and now Siloam Springs drops down, and they're right there with Russellville, and those 2 teams will play Friday night, I do believe.
Yes. In fact, Coach Tillery mentioned that, they've got to put that one from Tuesday night behind them in a hurry and get ready, because they've got another one, probably more important now, coming up on Friday.
Yeah.
How many teams in that league advance?
You only go
Four.
four.
Oh, wow. That's what I love. To me, that's perfect for basketball. The top four, or football,
Top
about any
four.
sport. Yep.
Which is really in the boys' side going to make things extremely interesting because right now there's still 6 teams that are very capable of getting those top 4 spots. Mountain Home had kind of started slipping down a little bit, but then they picked up a big win on Tuesday night, so they're kind of back in the mix. And we love to use this cliche, but they all hold their fate in their own hand. Well, all 6 of those teams do.
Yeah, and the thing of it is, of course, you were there at Greenland last night, and some teams decided to play a little lights out basketball.
Well, they did. The high winds caused some power outages, 3 of them to be exact. So, with 2:38 left in the third quarter, and Siloam Springs leading Greenwood 34-29, it was evident that it was not going to come back on very quickly. The only thing that was on was the emergency generator and some of the lights that come from that. So they did move that game, and it will be made up on Wednesday afternoon, which is another big game, especially for Siloam Springs, because that's the conference leader right now by 1 game.
And it's interesting. You've already mentioned it. 6 teams still have a shot at state tournament berths, because only get 4. But look at the job that a team like Harrison has done. Harrison moves up from 4A to 5A, and that is usually a big step. It's bigger than a 3A to 4A or a 2A to 3A. A lot of coaches will tell you that 4A to 5A, that is a big step. But here they are, 8-3 in league play, and if somehow Siloam Springs falters, they're in a tie for first place, and I think those 2 teams have got to play each other still.
Yeah, they do. And you mentioned Harrison, and of course we've all covered them through the years, but they have been used to playing teams from Alma and Greenwood and Siloam Springs through the years. So I think probably mentally it was not as big of a move up, as big of an elevation to Harrison as it might have been to a lot of others, because these are not teams, they're familiar with these teams. They've competed with them in the past, and they know that they can compete with them still.
Yeah, because, they play teams like Alma in football, and they play, I can't even think of some of those, but Greenbrier, they've played them in the past, so they're quite familiar with some of these schools.
Yeah.
So, and like, again, we've got 3 games left to play in the 5A, so there could be a lot of things happen between now and then.
Hey, going down to, I always like to look at the Sunday newspaper and the rankings and who's got a team like Bergman. What are they good? Like 32-0 now? Are they 32? Isn't one of them girls' teams? Somebody's undefeated. County Line boys are still undefeated.
They're 36-0.
36-0. I've heard maybe from years past, oh my goodness, you don't want to go postseason play without a loss. What do you guys think about that? Is that a big deal or no big deal?
I dealt with it last year when Bergman went 43-0.
Okay.
And I recall James Halitzka telling me, he said, he kind of wish, somewhere, find a game, where it's not a, don't do it in the state tournament, because one loss in the state tournament, you're out. But find, maybe they could have lost a game somewhere where it wasn't going to hurt their chances too much, to let them know, because, man, and they're, like I said, County Lines boys is probably experiencing that now. Farmington's boys are probably experiencing now.
Another one.
That thing starts growing. The target starts getting bigger on your back, and and sort of like those teams that can't find a way to win. They say they get the monkey on their back, and it grows up to King Kong. Sometimes all this winning, it starts getting on your back, and the pressure starts building on you. Yeah,
listeners, don't get us wrong. We don't want to say nobody wants to lose, but it's a man to to go in there and you're winning 15 points and 12 points, and you hadn't really come down to the last second where you have to win by less. I'll never forget years ago when I was working at the Times Record in Fort Smith. I think at Ozark Girls, maybe they were like 29-0 or real close. They hadn't lost, and they come up. I think it might have been in Prairie Grove, and they got beat like in a district tournament. That's more or less a glorified, conference tournament, something like that. And boom, they were done just like that. So I've always kind of
I covered that game.
Oh, okay, yeah. Tell me about it.
They lost one game, and they were done for the season. It was at the only spot. I think it was in the first round of the regional.
Okay.
And it was the only spot really during the entire season that they could have lost, other than the state tournament. The only spot that they could have lost a game and been eliminated, because I think in the district tournament they got to bye the semifinals.
Okay.
So they could have even lost that and still advanced. Obviously, they could have lost a couple of regular season games, conference games. It wouldn't have mattered. It was the only spot in the season that they could have lost that would have ended their season, other than the state tournament.
And was Sarah Pfeiffer on that team? I can't.
No, it
Okay.
was.
But they were really,
I
really
don't-
good that year. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it wasn't one of those teams. But you guys talk about wake-up calls, and I think that's what coaches sometimes like to have maybe happen as a wake-up
Be
call.
tested, yeah.
And, we were talking about, Greenwood and Siloam Springs, the first game. Sometimes the really good teams maybe survive those wake-up calls. And maybe it takes a last-second shot at the buzzer to win those games, because you could just tell from the onset, from the very beginning, that Greenwood was extra focused going into that game last night. And so, again, it goes back to they got the wake-up call, but they survived theirs. And now, like, Siloam Springs coach said, they seem to be a team on a mission.
Yeah, we've been in locker rooms. I've been in them locker rooms playing or just as a sports writer. And I can imagine what went on. The coaches right there say, hey, remember this? Remember you guys almost assled around and got beat? You go out there and show them who. And they looked like they certainly did. They took care of business this time.
Yeah, and we're coming into that stretch run right now. We've hit conference tournaments in those 1A through 4A schools, and of course I've been keeping up with, or trying to keep up with, the ones up here, the 4A1, the 3A1, the 2A1. Now, in most instances, the higher seeds have held serve, but there's a couple of them, and that's the good thing about district tournaments or conference tournaments, whatever you want to call them. I know some people call them districts. I prefer conferences because, hey, that's what they were in the regular season. That's what they should be in the tournament.
Yeah.
But it gives a team a second chance, because you never – they may have had an injury to a player, that a significant injury that may have hurt them during the regular season, but this player may have come back in time, and this gives them a second chance. And I said this, the higher teams have been holding serve, but in two instances I've already seen a number 5 seed has managed to pull off 2 wins already this week, and they're in the regional for next week. They have punched their ticket, and that is in the 2A1, Haas Hall Bentonville. Mm-hmm. The Huskies managed to pull off 2 wins, beat the 4th seed Cotter last night therein.
Wow.
And in the 1A1 East, Lead Hill, who was also the number 5 seed, they won their first game, got to play number 4 seed Alpena, beat them by 15. And so now Lead Hill will be in the regional tournament for the 4th straight year. And the coach sent me a text, and he said, an email that says, I'm so excited about this because we're finally coming together.
Hey, here's another factor, Henry. Maybe it's not so much a factor now, but it used to be in the olden days that you could bring up these freshmen. You had a real 2 or 3 really good freshmen. They come up to varsity, and in particular, I remember East Poinsett County, which is Lepanto, and Tyronza, Marcus Monk. Marcus Monk come up from the freshman team and led them maybe all the way to the state or something. And back then, I guess the ninth graders weren't eligible to play on varsity. But that was another factor. You get these guys who are really outstanding. Some of them were set on just for experience, but every once in a while you get somebody that comes up to varsity and just shows out and takes over.
Yeah, I seem to recall a few years back you hardly ever heard about ninth graders being moved up in special occasions. I know, back when it was the 4A West or the 5A West, they called it the Corliss-Williamson rule about, we're not moving ninth graders up because Russellville wanted to move Corliss-Williamson up. No, we don't want this.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, you look on several of these rosters here in the 6A West, Rogers boys have 2 freshmen playing. Fort Smith Northside girls have freshmen on the roster, and one of them starts. So it's not as much, a bigger thing as it used to be.
Well, here's something just from last night, a game I covered, Fayetteville 59, Bentonville West. Freshman Charlie Rawlins, 4 3-pointers, led the team with 14 points. But she's been outstanding all year. There was a perception at one time, you're still in junior high. I mean, you're going up against 18-year-old seniors. But, man, I see a lot of times that sometimes one of the best players out there are freshmen and sophomore. Girls mature a little bit faster, probably in my case a lot faster than the boys, and they get after it. So I really enjoy watching these freshmen. If you're good enough to play on a varsity, get out there.
Well, and Henry, and I don't want to spoil anything you've got coming in this particular, topic, but Patience McDaniel was pretty good as a freshman.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. She was brought up as a freshman, and hey, we won't hold a spoiler here. Go ahead and fire it off.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, Patience McDaniel has now become the all-time leading scorer for girls basketball in 6A West history. Thanks to that 4th year, she has now eclipsed 1,000 points in conference play.
Oh, just in conference?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's just in conference play, which to put it in perspective, that kind of, to me, that's against like opponents.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not like, we know how some teams, the non-conference schedule's tougher and lighter, and they play tournaments and things like that. This is just in conference play. She just passed Chelsea Jones, the great South Side scorer, who had scored really she scored close to 900 points in her career. And, and you look at some of the names on that list, and for her to be the all-time leading scorer in conference history, and this goes way back. This actually goes back to 1991, when the conferences went to 14 games, 8 teams playing a double round robin.
Wow, I did not know it. Thanks for letting me in on this. I appreciate that. That's really interesting. And she's a great player. Like I said, I don't know. I don't follow recruiting. I don't know if she's big enough to play, but man, she can score, get the rim, and she's a great teammate. So good for her. I'm glad to know that stat right there.
Yeah, it's a case where, like I said, she benefited. Where probably Chelsea only had 3 years, where Patience benefited from an extra year, a few extra conference games. Now, we did not count, back in the COVID year stage when they had the conference tournament. That was not counted.
No.
And thing of it is, Leland and I started talking about this week because he brought it up, and I said he had some games missing. So I sent a text to Kimberly Jenkins. I said, hey, can you come up with this for us? And as soon as she came up with the answers, I sent it to Leland and said, hey, here's what you need to complete what you get the stats and stuff like that. And the good thing is she's still got 3 games to go to build on this.
Hey, now
absolutely, it's a tremendous accomplishment. Now I know that at this point in the season right now it doesn't mean much to them because they've got so much more to go. But when you look at the names on that list, Tara Treat from Southside, Sarah Ludwig from Springdale, and of course Chelsea Jones, Markeisha Davis. Was way up there on the list as well, and there's just so many others. And again, that goes back to 91 when the conferences went to 18 teams, because Wendy Schulten still sets the standard. She scored 299 points in 30 conference games, because that was when the conference had 6 teams. So she only had 10 conference games per year. So to score 699 points in 30 conference games, that's still a mark that may never be touched as far as average per conference game. But 1,000 points, that's 250 a year, basically an average to play 4 years. So that's something that we need to enjoy it, because it doesn't happen very often.
Now I've been out of high school 83 years, so I don't know how this works. When you're a freshman, like say at 6A school, you're going to school like at one of the junior highs, say like in Springdale or Fayetteville. You go to school there at the junior high, and then somebody drives you over to senior high, and you play and practice with them, or is all ninth graders now in the big school with the seniors and juniors and all that?
They've pretty much, I know at Bentonville, and Bentonville West, they pretty much moved the ninth grades onto the high school campus. So they're all together now. And, in the smaller schools, of course, basically high school and junior high, sometimes they're in the same building. So it's just, hey, you go from one time to other.
Well, when I was in junior high, it was 7th, 8th, and 9th. And then we got bused across town to the bigger school. So I don't know how that works anymore. Okay. So, thanks for explaining that.
But yeah, but now we've got this. Hey, and like I said, come next week, we'll wrap up the conference play here in the 6A West, the 5A West, regional tournaments. I'll be covering the Class 3A Region 1, which will be at West Fork.
Okay.
And Leland's going to go venture to Lincoln and try to do some 1A1 regional tournament.
Absolutely. That's going to be a big one. Down here in the River Valley, we've got the 1A1 West District Tournament going on between County Line at County Line, which could be another great championship games set up there. The 2A4s in Mansfield, and on the girls' side, Mansfield and Hector were both 13-1. They tied for the conference championship, so that could be a third meeting because they split. So that could be a third meeting between those two teams. And the 3A4s in Paris, which that was a wide open conference all year. So that one could be, really good too. So I think all three of those, the championship games, are on Friday, because a couple of those conferences wanted to kind of offset their championship games with the ones up north so they could scout each other for the regionals.
Makes sense.
Yeah, because, in the case of the one where he's covered, he'll have the 1A1 West against the 1A1 East, which is Jasper and Kingston, that group. In the 2A, you've got Mansfield and Hector playing in their conference, but then you've got up here, you've got Eureka Springs and Lifeway Christian in that group, and then the 3A1, the 3A4. And then, we'll have the 4A1, they'll play down at Morrilton for their conference in that practically new arena there. So
strap it in. We got wall-to-wall basketball, right?
And, it's always important. Those Wednesday, Thursday games in regional play are important because you've got to win that one to make sure you're in the state tournament. Otherwise, those words you don't want to hear is season completed.
Oh, wow. That's when the tears flow.
So expecting that. And then, of course, next week, Rick, with the absence of our good colleague Paul Boyd.
Paul Boyd. Okay.
You've got to go watch wrestling, not wrestling.
Look, I know it's very hectic, but there's going to be a ton of wrestlers, girls and boys. So I'll be in Little Rock a couple of days, kind of focus on that, and then I'll lean on you guys when I get back to fill me in what's all going on, and then we have 6A state up at Rogers, I guess, at Rogers High School.
Rogers High School.
And looking forward to that. So, so it's a busy time for you, but it's a fun busy as well.
Yeah, I've always kind of sensed it as it's the fun kind of madness. We're fixing to hit March Madness, and it's going to be crazy, but hey, it's a fun type of crazy.
Yeah, I call it frantic February. So a lot to be decided, a lot of seedings to go. Of course, the tournaments are going on, so get out there and support these kids. You won't regret it.
Yeah. Anything else for you, Leland, before we pack it up and call it for a week?
Well, and we're talking about basketball and wrestling. Bowling's wrapping up, and I think you're covering, Henry, aren't you covering the indoor track? So track season begins Saturday.
Yeah, the state indoor track, I won't be covering it because I've got to do other duties and all that, but we will get the results together and compile it. But, yeah, that's just a nice little prelude to the outdoor track season, which starts February 27th, right along with baseball, softball, soccer.
Spring sports.
It's all just combines into one. So,
and we got swim and dive going on. I got the results from 6A. Bentonville swept, and then they have 6A state down there at Russellville. Is that right?
It's Little Rock.
In Little Rock. Oh, okay. Going on the same time as wrestling.
Right.
Woo, my goodness. Okay.
So, hey, during your spare time, Rick, during the wrestling, your spare time?
No. Hey, I'm not smart enough to do more than one thing at once. Nowhere near that. I got nothing else.
Got nothing else. We'll
pitchers and catchers.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. We'll come back here next week. We'll be starting to talk about regional tournaments, the final day of 6A West play, or the final week of it, and see what might behold come state tournament time. And we'll see what happens then. But, boy, between now and then, there's still a lot of basketball to be played.
Hey, and if Chip can listen to this where he's sitting in 9 hours in an airport or something, Chip, if you go to Rome, bring me back. I've always wanted a real authentic Italian pizza. I don't care if it's one slice, put it in a baggie or something, bring it back. I'll put it in the microwave. I want a slice of authentic Italian pizza.
And that's going to wrap it up for this week. For yours truly, Henry Apple, Rick Fires, and Leland Barclay. Hey, we'll see you again next week.